I'll give you a kid with developmental disabilities. Scarlett, my son's arrogant wife, said to me. A strong hatred for her stirring up inside me. She doesn't love her own children. She only sees them as tools for making money. My anger towards her reached its peak, and I decided to take my grandchild away from her. Then, I'll raise her. I set the condition that she would never be involved with her child again, and arranged for an adoption. 10 years later, Scarlett, triggered by a certain event, came to regret her choices. My name is Grace. I work as a proofreader. A proofreader is someone who checks for errors in manuscripts and layout prints at publishing companies, like for books and magazines. My husband, Henry, is a film director. He's made a name for himself as a capable director, having worked on a wide range of projects from animations to suspense and horror films. We, a creative couple, had one son. He grew up splendidly, found a wonderful wife, and got married. They were blessed with children. But soon after the marriage, our son tragically died in an accident. Losing our only son, Henry and I were engulfed in sorrow. But perhaps it was even harder for Scarlett, our son's wife. At the young age of 33, she became a widow and raised her 2 daughters by herself. Moreover, the girls were twins, and the younger one, Mia, showed signs of developmental disabilities. Her sister is Emma. At the time, Mia's condition was diagnosed as mild, but as she grew, her symptoms became more evident, and now she attends a special education class at the same elementary school as Emma. Raising a child with disabilities is no ordinary task. Especially for Scarlett, who lost her husband so early, her days must be incredibly hard. Of course, my husband and I try to support her in every way we can. She has a job, so during times like evenings when she can't take care of the kids, we take them in. Still, the hardships she's faced since our son's death are unimaginable. I am grateful to her. She truly cared for her children. Until she became obsessed with a certain man. Her personality changed after meeting this man. Grace, I'm taking Emma to her piano class, so I'll drop Mia off at your place. I should be there in about 5 minutes. That was a sudden, unexpected call. Previously, Scarlett used to check my schedule and show consideration, but lately, it's always been abrupt. She might know her piano class schedule in advance, yet she calls out of the blue, wanting to drop off Mia without any prior discussion. It's not just inconvenient for me, but for Henry as well, who has his own work. Scarlett, I think it's admirable how much you care for Emma. But if you're going to ask us to take Mia in suddenly every time, we have our own schedules too. Wait, aren't you off today, Grace? I saw on the calendar that you have every Tuesday off this month. Scarlett knew everything about our work and home schedule, as she often brought the kids over. It felt invasive, like being monitored. There are things we can only do on our days off. Please, don't just leave the kids with us without discussing it first. It's not that we don't want to take them. It's just a bit troublesome without any prior notice. I understand. I'll be more careful from now on. There was a brief pause, and Scarlett's reply sounded listless. Accompanying her perfunctory response was a faint clicking of her tongue. Before I could respond, she abruptly ended the call. Soon after, I heard Scarlett's car parking outside. Suppressing my exasperation, I got up from my chair to head to the door. Then, I overheard an unbelievable remark from the entrance. Mia, just go on to Grandma's by yourself. From the entrance, I heard Scarlett's condescending voice speaking to Mia, leaving me shocked and speechless. Moreover, I only heard the sound of the door opening once. Meaning, Scarlett didn't even get out of the car, she just told Mia something and then drove off again. Surprised by this unbelievable situation, I hurried to the entrance and found Mia left there alone. Mia. Where's your mom? Where did she go? Mia, not understanding the situation, looked at me with a puzzled expression. I placed my hands on Mia's shoulders, asking her what happened, but she just kept staring at me, puzzled, not attempting to answer my question. Grandma. Good evening. Mia is in elementary school, but she's delayed in speech, only able to communicate in two-word sentences. She can't answer complicated questions, and when bombarded with them, she tends to get stuck. At this moment, not understanding my question, Mia, contrary to my anxious mood, just smiled sweetly and continued to look at me. Mia, where did your mom go? Shopping? Piano class? Which one? When speaking to her, I know I shouldn't get emotional. If I convey words in haste, she also gets affected and may panic. I took a deep breath to calm myself and, showing my fists alternately with my hands, I tried to make it easier for Mia to choose an answer. Thanks to that, she seemed to understand the question and pointed to the right fist I held out secondly, uttering surprising words. Piano. Went with Emma and a man. A man. Hearing this intriguing word, I impulsively asked her more questions. Is he Mom's friend? Emma's friend? No. Mom's favorite person. Seeing her talk happily made my heart ache. Scarlett left a daughter behind to go to Emma's piano class with a new man. But why leave only Mia? The answer would soon become clear. That night, after piano class was over and it was getting time for Scarlett to pick Mia up, she didn't show up at our house. Fortunately, the next day was Saturday, so having Mia stay over wasn't a problem, but it was still incredibly rude. Scarlett left her with us without any notice. What's happening to her? I kept repeating these complaints in my mind while waiting with Mia for Scarlett to pick her up. Little did I know then, Scarlett's life was spiraling out of control. Hello, Grace? Sorry, but could you let Mia stay over tonight? Emma has come down with a fever. I don't want Mia to catch it, so could you look after her? It was past 9 p.m. I had finished giving Mia a shower and dinner, and was just waiting for Scarlett to pick her up when she called. Scarlett's voice on the phone didn't sound hurried, just apologetically casual. If I hadn't known the situation from Mia, I might not have doubted her words. But, having heard Mia's earlier story, I couldn't easily believe Scarlett. All right. We'll take care of her tonight. Realizing my reluctance, Henry, who was playing with Mia, turned to me and said so with a stern expression. I relayed to Scarlett that we would take care of Mia just for tonight. I understand the situation. But you knew about this sooner, right? How many hours has it been since piano class ended? Sorry. I was just about to pick her up when she started looking unwell. I'll be more careful next time. Her nonchalant reply only increased my anger. From now on, please make sure to contact us in advance. If not, we might find it difficult to take her in the future. Yes. Thank you so much. She responded sweetly and ended the call unilaterally. Dumbfounded and speechless, I returned to Mia and Henry, and that's when things got tough. Mia, how about spending today with Grandpa and Grandma? Your mom can't pick you up because she's taking care of Emma who's sick. Maybe the way I said it was not good. Mia, having already decided in her mind that she was going home, got upset when her routine was disrupted. Mia, in a state of panic, began to wander restlessly around, crying and repeating that she wanted to go home. She curled up on the spot, trying to calm herself down, but it seemed she couldn't switch off her emotions. Sitting down, then standing up, repeating this over and over, she eventually collapsed onto a nearby sofa and started to cry intensely. I'm sorry, it's my fault. It's okay. Let's just be there for Mia right now. We've encountered situations like this several times before. When she was younger, her tantrums were much worse, becoming so violent that she was uncontrollable. She would hit herself against walls or slap her hands on the floor, a far worse state compared to now. As she grew, perhaps maturing, her symptoms seemed to stabilize, now manifesting as crying intensely on the sofa. When Mia gets like this, both Henry and I stay by her side, never intervening or trying to do anything forceful. Mia, in her way of calming down, uses our hands to wipe her tears, seeking comfort through physical touch. But we don't initiate it. Mia has her own timing and needs. We've learned over these 6 years it's important to respond to her in that manner. I'm sorry. When Mia calms down, she always apologizes to us, perhaps thinking she'll be scolded for crying. Her eyes, wet with tears, stare at us, trembling with fear. At that moment, we had no idea that this behavior was a result of Scarlett's treatment. We're not mad at you. In fact, I'm sorry, Mia. I said something hard to you. Good girl, good girl. Though she might not understand my words, she seemed to read my emotions from my expression. Mia, kneeling in front of me, gently stroked my hair. Even if her words are limited, her heart is so kind. What does a disability matter? It's just a part of who she is, her unique character. I love this gentle side of her. Thinking this and smiling, I heard Henry's voice suggesting it's time to sleep, and Mia, now ready to switch to bedtime mode, happily went with Henry to the bedroom. The next morning, a grim-faced Emma and Scarlett in a slovenly outfit arrived. Thank you for yesterday. Emma's fever seems to have gone after sleeping all night, which really helped. Scarlett said in a manner as if a heart emoji should be at the end of her sentence, without a hint of remorse. Next to her, Emma looked upset for some reason. Curious, I was about to speak, but Mia, seeing her mother, lit up and rushed to embrace her, leaving me with no choice but to keep quiet. Mom, you're back. Mia. I'm back, let's go home. Scarlett spoke to Mia as she hugged her. At that moment, I felt something off in Scarlett's smile. For a brief moment, it seemed like a look of laziness towards Mia. It was so brief that I couldn't be sure. Was it just my frustration from yesterday making me see things, or was there really something off? Unsure of the fleeting feeling, I couldn't confront her about it. Then, we'll visit again soon. As Scarlett said this and took Mia's hand heading to the car, an angry-looking Emma handed me a letter. Read this after we leave. Emma whispered, passing me the letter discreetly, making sure Scarlett didn't hear. Sensing something was seriously wrong, I took the letter without asking any further questions. After Scarlett left, I called Henry into the living room, and we read Emma's letter together. It contained shocking information. Mom changed after finding a new boyfriend. She's hardly home and gives money to this man. She's using the prize money I won from a piano competition and a concert to pay him. She's leaving Mia with Grandma and Grandpa because this man has started to dislike Mia and finds her annoying. She sees me as a tool to earn money through piano. Soon, Mom might push Mia onto Grandma and Grandpa permanently. I'm okay, but please look after Mia. I was stunned and speechless at the unbelievable content of the letter, and at the end of it, I noticed what appeared to be a mobile phone email address. I remembered Scarlett mentioning that Emma's piano talents blossomed when she entered elementary school and that her lessons had become busier. Emma, even as a young child, had gained media attention for her skills and had now become a piano prodigy, attracting nationwide attention. Things have become rather dangerous lately, so I decided to give her a mobile phone. It seems normal these days for elementary school kids to have one, and I thought it wouldn't be a problem. If she's receiving media attention, it's a natural concern and precaution for a parent to have. I remember hearing this story and thinking how times have changed. This email address must belong to Emma's mobile phone. Emma is quite a smart girl. If she's written down her mobile phone address, it means she isn't being monitored by Scarlett. It must be safe to contact her there. Believing this to be Emma's address, I decided to reach out. Good evening. Is this Emma's address? Yes, it's me. Thanks for reading my letter. Grandma, please help Mia. I received this reply after 10 p.m. Probably just as she was going to bed. I then exchanged several messages with Emma. Tell me more about what's happening. Make sure to delete our messages afterward. Of course. I wasn't really sick yesterday. It was all a lie so Mom could go see her boyfriend. I was left at a friend's house, and Mom went out with him. He seems to be in a band, and Mom's always following him around. She's using the money I earn from piano competitions to spend time with him. I don't really mind, but Mia, she's treated terribly at home. Mia doesn't understand and always smiles, but after being scolded, she cries a lot and is inconsolable. Mom prioritizes her boyfriend over us now. She's happy when I give her money. But as long as Mia is around, Mom will continue to treat her horribly. The boyfriend even said to leave Mia with you and Grandpa. Mia might be happier with you. So please, help Mia. I'll do anything for her. Reading the message to the end, I couldn't stop my tears. Such a young girl, only 6 years old, desperately trying to protect her sister. Especially since she's the same age as her. Sacrificing herself without a second thought. What a terrible mother to make such a young child feel this way. What are you planning to do? You could be in danger too. I'll be okay. Mom needs me as long as I can play the piano. If it gets too much, I'll threaten to quit. I want to become better at piano. If that means using them to my advantage. That man seems well connected in the industry, so I'll use that to my advantage. So don't worry about me. But please, take care of Mia. I can't protect her. Can she really be only 6 years old? Her maturity made me feel her strength. But we never know what might happen. Not to overdo it, to rely on us if things get tough. And to keep in touch without fail. And be careful not to lose contact. I promised her 3 things. I agreed to help Emma. A month later, Scarlett's irresponsible behavior continued, and we were constantly being inconvenienced. But we couldn't let anything happen to Mia. We even started to say that we wanted to take care of Mia ourselves to protect her and keep our promise to Emma. One day, Scarlett came to our house with Mia, asking for a favor. I might be going abroad soon. What? Henry, listening with me, also looked shocked. Emma's piano teacher thinks highly of her talent. She might get to study with a famous teacher in Italy. If she does well there, she'll become a world-famous pianist. That's why I came to ask if you could take care of Mia. It's impossible to take her abroad. I couldn't help but doubt Scarlett's story. Emma hadn't mentioned anything like this. There was no reason for her to keep such a big secret. I stared at Scarlett suspiciously. Can you take Mia upstairs? I need to talk to Scarlett alone. Henry seemed to understand from my expression. He took Mia and left the living room. Tell me the truth. What? Emma going abroad, such a sudden decision isn't plausible, is it? Also, the last time you left Mia with us, a friend of mine saw you walking around town with a man. If you keep hiding the truth unnecessarily, I'll have to take appropriate action. What's the real reason? Tell me the truth. The story about a friend spotting her was a lie. But I thought it necessary to shake her up. Fooled by my words, Scarlett revealed her true colors. If you already knew everything, you should have said so earlier. There was no need for such an act. What? Her sudden change in demeanor took me by surprise. Her tone and attitude were so unbelievable that I couldn't see her as the kind Scarlett I knew. To be clear, Mia is a nuisance. Just saying she has a developmental disability lowers my chances of remarrying significantly. Emma's success does offset that to some extent, but being a mother of a child with disabilities, nobody wants to associate with me. So, for my and Emma's happiness, I want you to take Mia. It's better for Emma to have a father, right? It would be good for my mental health too. Scarlett spoke nonchalantly, without a hint of remorse. I was speechless, unable to comprehend her words. She said something even more surprising. In short, I'm giving Mia to you. Emma is all I need. You are happy about having a grandchild, so it works out perfectly, right? She talked about Mia being a useless burden and a financial strain, laughing. I couldn't recognize her as a human being. Mia still loves her as a mother. Mia, so pure and earnest, loves her mother despite the terrible treatment. Thinking of Mia's feelings made me furious at Scarlett's attitude and words. But I didn't want to argue. For us, Mia is a precious remnant of our son. Rather than being raised by such a worthless parent, we wanted to take care of her and make her happy. Calming myself, I responded to her words.
Then, I'll raise her. In return, you'll never see Mia again. I'll tell her that her mother has passed away. For her sake, never call yourself her mother again. Don't ever show up in front of her.
Yeah. Do whatever you want. I'm happy to get rid of such a useless child. Scarlett said this, stretched her arms out wide as if relieved, and left our house without telling Mia anything. Thus, Mia came to live with us as our adopted daughter. Of course, the first few months were tumultuous. Mia was distraught over her mother's absence, causing a great deal of mental strain. We reached out to doctor acquaintances, invited specialists to our home, and collaborated with therapeutic institutions, focusing on her support. Thanks to that, a few months later, Mia returned to school and was able to live a more settled life. 10 years later, when Mia was in her first year of high school, an incident occurred. One afternoon, someone repeatedly rang our doorbell. It was a holiday, and we were spending time together as a family.
Who could it be, ringing the bell so many times?
Irritated by the rude visit, I went to the door and grimaced when I saw who it was through the peephole.
I know you're there. Come out. Give back Mia, you thieving family.
There stood Scarlett, whom we had cut ties with 10 years ago, and a flamboyantly dressed man. Possibly he is the boyfriend from the rumors. What's going on? The front door seems noisy.
Henry. Scarlett found our house and has come to visit suddenly. What?
We had moved to change our lives after cutting ties with Scarlett. We bought a place convenient for our jobs, never expecting she would find us. Henry and I exchanged looks, wondering what to do. It's okay, Grandma, Grandpa. Let them in. I want to settle things with that person. Mia was now 16. Her developmental disability had stabilized, and she could communicate normally. Though she still had intense fixations and could get absorbed in things, these traits helped her succeed in a certain venture.
You're late. If you're inside, just let us in quickly.
Scarlett had changed into a completely different person from the one who used to live with our son. As soon as she entered our house, she sat down next to a man on the sofa, crossing her arms and legs in an arrogant manner and glaring at us, clearly in a bad mood. Though her attitude was irksome, reacting to her provocations would only play into her hands. We took a deep breath to maintain our calm, sat across from her, and asked what this was all about.
You have no business bringing strangers into my house.
What do you want now, after cutting ties with me 10 years ago? Mia was sitting at a nearby workbench, busy with some writing. Fortunately, when she's in this focused mode, she doesn't hear anything around her. Knowing she wouldn't be bothered by our argument, we were told to have our discussion here. Glancing sideways at Mia, Scarlett smirked and arrogantly declared,
It's simple. I've come to take Mia back. She's my daughter, so it's my right to have her back, isn't it?
What is this woman talking about? Has she forgotten what she said that day, 10 years ago? Lost for words at Scarlett's absurd thinking, a stern-looking Henry addressed her in a low voice.
You said you didn't want Mia and discarded her. We told Mia her mother was dead, and that should have been the end of it. That was just a verbal agreement. Besides, Mia knows I'm alive through the letters I sent her, right? If her mother is alive, there's no reason for us to live apart.
Scarlett's defiant reply was infuriating. She had bombarded our home with letters once she learned of Mia's talent and even showed up at her school to make her presence known.
Do you have any idea how much pain your selfish actions have caused Mia?
Scarlett's actions had recklessly stirred up Mia's emotions. Believing her mother was dead, Mia was so disturbed by this revelation that she couldn't even go to school for a while. However, thanks to her friends and a certain child, she gradually recovered and was able to return to her normal life.
I'm telling you, I'll take proper care of her from now on. So hand over Mia to me. Enough already.
Scarlett, eager to justify herself and demand Mia's return, was interrupted by Mia herself. Mia threw a pen at near Scarlett's face, and she stepped up to Scarlett, shaking her fist in anger.
You never cared about me. You dumped me with Grandma and others because I was in the way of your time with that man. And now you claim to be a mother? Don't make me laugh. To me, you're not a mother at all.
We could never have imagined she would speak like this when she was little. She used to accept everything her mother did with a smile, never showing anger. But living with us, Mia had changed. She developed a rich emotional life, and thanks to therapy, her teachers, and friends, she learned to express herself. She even learned to distinguish right from wrong. In defiance of her mother, who had abandoned her, Mia honed a particular talent. So, she must not forgive Scarlett, who had chose the man getting along well over her. Scarlett didn't know how much I understood about Mia. She also didn't realize that she was being betrayed by a certain child.
You're just greedy for money. I knew you'd show up sooner or later. After all, you know I'm the author of that movie.
At those words, Scarlett's face showed a flicker of unease. After we took her in, we had Mia try various things. Scarlett had made Mia play the piano like Emma, but it wasn't for Mia. That was the real reason she considered abandoning Mia. We had heard about this from a certain child and encouraged Mia to explore her interests and take her to places she wanted to visit. As a result, Mia discovered a talent for something special. It was drawing. She had an exceptional artistic sense. Her imagination was beyond our expectations. As Henry and I, both of whom work in animation, recognize her excellent work. I tried showing it to a certain author. We even showed her work to a famous industry figure, who has an award named after him. His high praise led to her drawings being immediately adopted by my company's editorial department. She demonstrates stellar performance in drawing, which was made into an animated TV series and films in a flash.
Now, I'm worth more than Emma. You thought you could use me to pay off the money you spent on that man and your ballooning gambling debts, didn't you? Too bad. I know all about your wrongdoings. Who would want to go back to a terrible parent like you now? Get out. My real parents are Grandpa, Grandma, and Dad.
Scarlett was shaken by these unexpected words from Mia. Why did she know everything? We hadn't even talked about it, so how did she find out? In the midst of confusion and agitation, the man next to her was showing anger at being yelled at.
What are you saying to Mother who gave birth to you? Did I ask to be born? You gave birth to me, abandoned me, and now you come back for your own convenience. I don't want to hear Mother from someone who's only interested in money. Who would go back to a greedy woman like you? Get out now. Just the thought of you makes me sick.
Scarlett was speechless from the shock and surprise of being defied. The man next to her stood up in anger, about to grab her. Just as we stood up to stop him, a voice came from the living room entrance.
If you do that, I'll show this video to the police and have you thrown in jail right now.
Everyone turned to see Emma at the entrance, holding her mobile phone camera. She was supposed to be in Italy.
Why is Emma here? Isn't she in Italy? I asked my teacher to reschedule my lessons. I thought you'd try to get in touch with Mia while I was away and bring her back to our house. I'm glad I kept in touch with her beforehand. As I thought, you came to Grandma and Grandpa's place.
Emma said this and walked next to Mia, filming the man to protect him. Emma had explained everything to Mia and had always been there to protect her. She continued to use the man next to Scarlett. With his knowledge of the music industry, she might be able to meet the foreign pianist she admired. She wouldn't spare money to fulfill her dream. And she had a plan to leave Scarlett when the time came.
This is my investment to fulfill my dream. It's not hard at all. They're so stupid. They don't know I'm secretly having Grandma manage the money. The reward money I give them is just a fraction, so don't worry.
Emma, now a middle school student, began studying about money and law. She had grown up to be as knowledgeable as an adult, talking about her family situation at work and getting full support from the office. Thanks to that, Emma's bank account had enough savings to live on her own. She was finally ready for settling in Italy, which has been her long-cherished dream leaving Scarlett, so she talked to Mia about it in advance.
I've been adopted by Grandma and Grandpa too.
What? Scarlett was visibly confused by this unexpected turn of events. The man next to her hadn't anticipated this either. In a panic, he pressed Scarlett about what to do.
After all the good times I've given you, you should be satisfied by now. I don't need trash like you around me as I become big. Emma and I have never considered you our mother, so rest assured. Don't ever show yourself to us again. We've already talked to Grandma and Grandpa about the adoption. All that's left is your consent, but we're prepared for a refusal and have already contacted a lawyer. I'm so happy to think I'll finally be able to live with Emma again. Well, I live in Italy, so we won't see each other often, but considering everything we've been through, it's easy, right? Now we can enjoy many things together again.
Seeing them happy, I couldn't help but smile, and an infuriated Scarlett reached for my collar.
You're the one! You filled Emma's head with nonsense.
But Emma quickly turned her camera to Scarlett to protect her.
Don't get the wrong idea. I made this proposal to Grandma and Grandpa on my own. You thought I was your ally, so you never suspected me. I always comforted you, didn't I? But I've never once thought of you as my mother. My parents are my deceased father, and Grandma and Grandpa, who still love us.
Scarlett, who had never been defied by them before, looked like it was the end of the world. She sat down on the sofa in a daze, unable to accept reality.
Mia has always longed for you.
With Scarlett in such a pathetic state, I delivered the final blow.
You rejected the love she repeatedly sought from her mother. You, drowned in men, have no right to call yourself a mother. I will take good care of Mia and Emma with Henry. Don't ever come near these kids again. You're no longer their family.
Hearing this, Scarlett broke down in tears. She kept calling for Mia and Emma, but her pleas never reached them. As they asked to be kicked out, Henry turned Scarlett and the man away.
If you persist, I'll call the police. At this threat, they left the house scared.
Since then, Scarlett and the man visited several times, begging to have them returned. But their persistence disgusted Mia, and she reported them to the police. Under the anti-stalking law, they were forbidden to approach Mia, ensuring her safety. Thus, they successfully severed ties with Scarlett. Their lingering feelings cleared, Mia and Emma lived freely. Emma became a world-famous pianist, met her destiny in Italy, and now performs concerts worldwide with her violinist lover. As for Mia, her movie adaptation was a global hit, making her a popular creator. We've been involved in her works and now support her life as a united family.
You're the housekeeper, so you do all the cooking, cleaning, and nursing. If you don't like it, get a divorce and get out.
Brian made it clear that I was his housekeeper.
So that was your plan all along. I'm free labor, a housekeeper. On top of that, I'm also expected to look after your mother, Sarah. Of course, we got married, and you're my wife. You're not cut out for it if you don't like it. Pack your bags and leave. I can divorce you anytime.
It must have been his final warning. Brian said it with a nasty smirk.
Listen, I'm an elite from a prestigious company. You're only just getting by with that pathetic business, thanks to me. Remember that.
All right, then. I whispered, and it seemed to reach Brian.
As long as you understand. Remember, do as I say.
Without responding, I turned my back on Brian and muttered quietly again.
Then consider yourself fired. What?
As a result of my actions, my elite husband. My name is Helen. 30 years old. I own a restaurant. People say it's impressive to be an owner at this young age, but the place was originally my father's, and I just took over. The chef, who's been with us since my father's time, is the one who actually cooks in the kitchen, preserving the flavors that have been cherished since its establishment. With the help of such longtime staff, I've somehow managed to keep the restaurant running. I'm still in the learning process. I took over the restaurant at the age of 22, right after graduating from college. Instead of getting a job, I was immediately entrusted with it from my father. I graduated from the economics department, so I thought I had learned a lot, but reality doesn't always follow the textbooks. Despite numerous failures, and my fair share of bad days, I've managed to keep the restaurant going to this day. I thought I was pretty lucky. About 5 years after I took over the restaurant, a man started coming regularly. It was Brian, who would later become my husband. Once, a group of men in suits came over. Brian was one of them. He said that he liked the food, and started coming as a regular customer. Brian and his colleagues were employees of a major food manufacturer, and they said they were visiting various restaurants for research.
I've had my eye on this restaurant for a while, but I usually go to the bigger ones in town, or in the suburbs, so I always pass this place by.
Oh, I understand. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. As I said that, Brian laughed sheepishly. I remember thinking he seemed honest and rather nice. My restaurant is indeed in such an odd location. But the taste is so good that many people have fallen in love with it and have been coming back for decades.
It's delicious, I've become quite the fan,
Brian confessed. True to his word, Brian became a regular customer and started talking a lot with me, the owner. Brian graduated from a top university and worked at a renowned company. He was the epitome of an elite. I had never been close to someone like that before. Not only was Brian brilliant at what he did, but he also had good looks. He was tall and slender with a well-defined face. Undoubtedly, he was the type who would be popular. Brian was 7 years older than me, so he was 34 at the time. I assumed he was married due to his age, but he laughed and said he was single. I've been living a life of work, and more work, and before I know it, I'm at this age. How silly of me. His easygoing manner, humorous conversation, and gentle tone made it seem like he wasn't an elite. Before I knew it, I had fallen for Brian. It was probably unrequited love. In his eyes, I was just the restaurant owner, and he was a regular patron. But then, out of the blue, he proposed to me.
Helen, would you consider being in a relationship with me, with marriage in mind?
I couldn't believe it. My heart was pounding. Could such a wonderful person really have feelings for me? It felt like a dream. Like Prince Charming had come for me. I felt like the protagonist of a fairy tale, and intoxicated by that dream, I accepted. A year later, I married Brian. But this fairy tale didn't end with, and they lived happily ever after. After we got married, the next chapter of the story turned into something much darker, like a picture book painted over completely in black.
Hey, you're my wife now. You understand what that means, right?
Brian said this soon after we started living together as a married couple.
Yes, we got married, so I'm your wife now.
I could only respond with confusion to his sudden change in tone. Then Brian suddenly raised his voice.
What kind of a response is that? I'm your husband, so you should address me with more respect. A wife should respect and honor her husband, don't you even know that?
I was too shocked to respond right away. What had happened? It was as if the Brian I knew had been replaced by someone else. A transformation from a prince to a tyrant. I wondered what kind of a witch had cast such a spell.
Listen, I'm an elite, you know that, right? You have to become a wife worthy of me. Prepare yourself for the training I'm going to give you.
From that day on, I was constantly ordered around by Brian. First, Brian demanded perfect housekeeping from me.
Make sure the house is immaculate, ready for anyone to come over at any time. That's a housewife's job. Don't you dare embarrass me.
My family ran a restaurant, so honestly, our house was never in a pristine state. My father was busy in the kitchen, and my mother was helping out too. There was no way we could manage perfect housekeeping. My parents did their best, tidying up and cleaning whenever they spotted a mess, but running a restaurant while raising me was overwhelming. My grandparents on my father's side lived far away, but my grandparents on my mother's side looked after me during particularly busy hours. That was how we managed to get by.
I can't do that. I mean, I have my restaurant to take care of.
Don't make excuses before even trying. You don't even want to make any effort. I managed to put the conversation to rest at the time by saying that I would try, but when I actually started, I realized that it was impossible.
Look, I have the restaurant to handle, so can't we hire someone for the housework?
It wasn't like I was saying I wouldn't do any housework at all. I just wanted to hire a housekeeper to make up for what I couldn't manage, but Brian didn't like the idea.
Why should we waste money like that? The best thing about a housewife is that she's free labor.
I was shocked by his words. Free labor, is that how Brian saw me? It became crystal clear at that moment.
That little restaurant of yours, who knows when it'll go under? You're lucky you found someone like me to support you. Be grateful and serve me well.
When we were dating, he had praised me for taking over the business from my parents at such a young age. That's one of the reasons why I fell for Brian. It might be a small place, but it meant a lot to me, and he had once praised my dedication to keeping it going.
Just keep the restaurant as insurance.
If need be, we can sell it. It's worth something even if it's small.
But if it starts losing money, shut it down immediately. It's not worth keeping if it's running at a loss.
That's what he said.
So that's what you've wanted all along. I'll never let go of that restaurant, no matter what. Just do your best, but don't forget that I'm only allowing this to be your little hobby because I feel sorry for you. Remember, it's because I care about you.
Brian said while laughing. From that day on, I started thinking about getting a divorce. But I still had some affection for Brian. I wanted to prove him wrong and make him apologize. I was sure he would understand someday. I worked like a horse with these mixed feelings. Indeed, it's a small restaurant, sustained mostly by regulars. Nowadays, most people opt for chain restaurants which offer the same taste wherever you go. That's why big chains thrive. But there will always be those who seek a nostalgic taste. That's why I want to keep the restaurant going. That desire never fades. While maintaining a seemingly peaceful marriage on the surface, I worked hard for the day I would prove Brian wrong. And to that, Brian half mockingly, half amusedly would say,
"Wow, you're really trying hard, still keeping that restaurant going, huh? I thought it would fail soon." Well, as long as you take care of the house, you can keep going.
I was already doing it without being told. Every morning, I'd wake up early to prepare breakfast for Brian, wake him up, and see him off, then rush out of the house. I'd spend a busy day at the restaurant, and then after closing, I'd shop for groceries, come back home to cook dinner, and clean. When Brian returned, I'd serve him dinner, get ready for a shower, do the laundry, prepare for the next day, and take care of anything else left to do. I was cutting back on sleep, scheduling every day tightly to manage everything without wasting a moment.
If the house ever gets messy, I'll make you close down the restaurant immediately and sell it.
Brian was probably waiting for that day. I could feel it. Perhaps he married me intending to have a housewife with assets who provides housekeeping services for free. Back then, I was infatuated with Brian. He knew that and thought I'd never stand up to him. That's probably why he chose me.
It surprised me how much you dedicate yourself to the restaurant. I thought once we got married, you'd only have eyes for me.
I feel betrayed, Brian said one day. I thought I was the one being betrayed. I had believed he understood me when he chose me. I wanted to say that, but I swallowed my words. And then things got worse.
My mother has fractured a bone and is hospitalized. Sarah?
Brian's parents live in the neighboring state. I don't want to say this, but like Brian's true colors, they are not the most pleasant people.
Brian is our pride and joy. A graduate from a top university, working at a leading company, an elite man. You've been chosen by Brian, so you should be grateful and serve us well. Helen doesn't realize her luck. Someone married to our son, Brian, should be greeting us in a fancy cocktail dress and a bottle of decent wine.
That's right.
It's just as I expected. A daughter of a restaurant owner must be poorly educated.
That was the first thing they said to me when we met. Not only were they rude to me, but they insulted my parents too. I was about to say something back when my anger got the better of me, but Brian intervened to settle the matter, so I decided to keep my mouth shut for the moment.
Come now, Helen is still young. It's understandable that she lacks in certain areas. Think of it as having a potential to grow.
I should have realized the true nature of this family at that point, but back then, I was convinced that Brian was protecting me and that he was on my side. After that, my in-laws continued to make snide remarks every time something happened.
I can't believe Brian married a restaurant owner's daughter. Right, someone like Brian could have married a daughter of a CEO or an executive.
Think about that, Helen.
Be a good daughter-in-law to us.
My in-laws seemed to think that only those working in big corporations like Brian were successful, and anyone in other professions, especially the service industry, were second-class citizens. But even so, Sarah's injury is unfortunate. I'd have to at least pay her a visit. But then Brian said something shocking. It's a femur fracture. She'll need hospitalization and rehabilitation for a while after surgery. Can you look after her?
Wait, but aren't hospitals still enforcing visitation restrictions? I can maybe visit or bring something, but looking after her might not be allowed, right?
Who said anything about the hospital? I mean, after my mother is discharged and comes to live with us. It took me a moment to understand what he meant. As I was silently pondering, Brian dropped the bombshell. Don't be dense. Once my mother is discharged, she's moving in with us, along with my father.
What?
You have a problem with that? Of course, it was a problem. Even the thought of living alone with Brian was unbearable, let alone with his parents too.
I can't take care of Sarah,
I said firmly.
I have my restaurant to run.
It's impossible.
Professional care would be best for her. Why should we pay for that when you're here? Then, close down the restaurant. Sell it and use that money for the family.
Brian made an outrageous demand.
I won't sell the restaurant. And I won't take care of Sarah. You're the housekeeper, so you do all the cooking, cleaning, and nursing. If you don't like it, get a divorce and get out.
Brian made it clear that I was his housekeeper.
So that was the plan all along.
I'm free labor, a housekeeper.
On top of that, I'm also expected to look after your mother, Sarah. Of course, we got married, and you're my wife. You're not cut out for it if you don't like it. Pack your bags and leave. I can divorce you anytime.
It must have been his final warning. Brian said it with a nasty smirk.
Listen, I'm an elite from a prestigious company. You're only just getting by with that pathetic business, thanks to me. Remember that.
All right, then. I whispered, and it seemed to reach Brian.
As long as you understand. Remember, do as I say.
Without responding, I turned my back on Brian and muttered quietly again.
Then consider yourself fired. What?
Brian didn't hear it clearly and asked again, but I didn't bother repeating myself.
I need to get things ready, so I can't do it right now. Fine, there's still time before my mother is discharged. They say she needs at least a month in the hospital. If you're ready by then, that's fine.
Brian must have thought I had agreed and went to the bedroom, satisfied. I had been preparing for this for 2 years. Everything had been for this very moment. But even so, I still had hope. That Brian would return to the man he was before we got married. I didn't want to believe that the person I loved so much, that those happy days, were a lie. That's what I thought. But all my hopes were shattered. I had to make up my mind. I was ready.
Hello, it's Helen.
No, it didn't work out.
It can't be helped. Let's take action.
I made a call to someone, ready to move forward. A month later, an article made it to the front page of the economics section of the newspaper. The story was that the food manufacturer for which Brian worked for was about to be acquired by a restaurant group in a large stock buyout.
What the hell is this?
In frustration, Brian yanked the newspaper from side to side, tearing it in half.
This is a joke. We're a leading company. And now they're selling us out to some stupid restaurant group.
Brian crumpled the torn newspaper and hurled it against the wall.
Damn it, what's gonna happen? This can't be true.
Brian turned on the TV as if waking from a nightmare, only to see the same news. It seemed the acquisition was real.
Damn it, how did it come to this?
Brian slumped down on the sofa and ruffled his hair in frustration.
There's nothing we can do about what's already happened. Here, take this.
What's this? Brian looked at what I offered him and his eyes widened in shock. He seemed very surprised.
What is this?
It's a divorce petition.
I can see that. What the heck do you think you're doing giving me this?
Brian crumpled the divorce papers and threw them too.
That too, after the newspaper? No matter how much you crumple it, nothing will go back to how it was. Why do you want a divorce? I demand an explanation.
Are you kidding? Have you forgotten? You're the one who mentioned it. Brian went silent, likely remembering his own words.
I won't take care of Sarah or live with your parents. If you don't like it, get a divorce. Those were your words, right? I did say that. But well, I was bluffing, thinking you wouldn't listen to me otherwise.
So it was a threat. Brian didn't respond. I married you because I loved you. I trusted you. But you deceived me and betrayed me repeatedly. That's why I've decided to get a divorce. I took another divorce petition from the file and placed it in front of Brian.
I have spare copies, so feel free to crumple that too. If I run out, I can get more or download it and print it out. We live in such convenient times.
Brian stared at the divorce petition placed before him again.
This is a lie, right?
He looked at me with pleading eyes. No, it's true. This is reality.
You're not that kind of woman, right? You wouldn't do something so cruel when I'm so vulnerable.
It seemed like he wasn't going to accept it so easily.
Think about what you've done, and what you've tried to do to me. Which do you think is worse?
I took my time to tell Brian.
Do you remember what you said after we got married? That a wife should respect and honor her husband?
Brian didn't respond.
I respected you even before we got married. That's why I decided to marry you. But after hearing those words, my respect for you vanished. People who trample on others are also trampling on their own feelings.
Brian looked down, silent.
You saw me only as free labor, a housekeeper. And the restaurant I cherished, you saw as an asset to cash in. I realize that, but still, I loved you. Helen.
Brian looked up at me with hope.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you cared about me so much. That's why I acted harshly. Please forgive me.
Brian held my hand, tears streaming down his face.
I'll change, I promise. Give me another chance. I'll treasure you this time.
I'm sorry. I pulled my hand away from Brian's.
Why not? We loved each other, didn't we? We can still make it work.
No, it's too late. I've lost all faith in you.
That's why I decided to acquire your company. What?
Brian looked at me, bewildered.
The big restaurant group that acquired your company, with 1,900 full-time employees, I'm the president of that company.
Unfortunately, I'm letting you go.
No, this isn't the time for jokes. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?
Brian half laughed, but it was the truth. Never mind that for now. Here, take this. Brian took the envelope I handed him with confusion, then screamed in disbelief as he checked the contents.
What's this?
It was evidence of Brian's affairs. There were documents from a private investigator and numerous photos.
A female employee in the secretarial department, a subordinate's wife, a recent college graduate, a woman from a business partner, a girl from a club, and who else?
The list was astonishingly long. Brian is attractive. And with his elite status, it's no surprise women flocked to him. Amazing, isn't it?
Your affairs are too many to count on both hands. I'll be seeking compensation for all of them, from you and the women involved.
Hey! What? Brian, looking at the documents and photos, turned pale and trembled. He tried to speak to me but didn't seem to know what to say.
The problem is the time and place of the affairs. A lot of them seem to happen when you were supposed to be working. I think this is a breach of trust against the company.
A lot of them occurred when he was out of the office on business during working hours, making sales rounds, on business trips, and entertaining clients. Brian was with his mistresses instead, as detailed in the documents.
You've been investigating me like this all along?
Yes, that's right.
That's not fair.
Brian threw the documents and photos at me.
You used the money I earned for this? No, not a single dollar of your money was used. Liar. You don't have that kind of money.
Brian, being an elite, had a high salary. He saw me as free housekeeping labor, but he did contribute financially to the household.
You know I'm the owner of a restaurant, right? Yeah, that near bankrupt one. Just a hobby, isn't it? Owner, huh? Ridiculous. It's true that if you look at the finances alone, the restaurant doesn't seem that prosperous. But there's more to it.
I told Brian the whole truth.
That restaurant was for gathering information. I was researching the current trends, what sells, and things like that.
That restaurant, established by my parents, was the first of many. Now, it's a major chain with locations not just in America, but abroad too. The company that acquired Brian's workplace was the parent company of that restaurant chain.
This must be a lie.
It is not a lie. The location of the original restaurant was ideal for market research. The first restaurant thrived mainly due to my father's skills. But the reason we could expand was due to understanding customer preferences.
You never talked about your family business like this before. You tricked me.
I didn't trick you.
I just didn't tell you.
When I started dating Brian and considering marriage, my father advised me to wait and see.
In hindsight, my father saw through your true nature. He said to tell you if you didn't change after our marriage.
Back then, I would have married Brian regardless of his opposition. That's why my father had said such a thing. And what I told Brian when we married wasn't a lie. My father was ill and struggling to continue working. So, he had my uncle take his place as the company president, and he pretty much retired. That's why it was true when I said I took over the restaurant, because my father was sick. He had undergone major surgery and difficult treatments. As an only child, I was still too young to take over the company, so I was in charge of the restaurant, partly so that I could learn new things. My business degree couldn't make up for my extreme lack of experience. I was told that if I failed to run the restaurant, I wouldn't be acknowledged as the successor. So, I worked hard to continue my father's legacy and earn his approval. My father probably warned me to keep quiet, fearing the business might be taken over or ruined by a bad marriage. But I thought Brian was different, and I wanted to prove I could be honest with him. That's why I remained silent. Well, I was disappointed.
My father even told me that if Brian wasn't the man I thought, I should resolve it by myself.
Of course, that's what I should do. There was no way I could run such a large corporation if I couldn't handle something as small as this.
So, I've lived these past 2 years thinking about how I would make you regret it if you didn't show any remorse. Though, at the same time, I hoped you'd change your ways.
I sighed, picked up my mobile phone, and made a call. The person on the other end answered right away, so I just said what I needed to and hung up. Immediately, the bell to the front entrance rang, so I unlocked it to let the visitor in.
Who's that?
Just watch. Soon the doorbell rang, and I invited the guest in.
The company president.
It was the former president of the company Brian worked for, soon to be mine. The former president bowed stiffly to me. "Please proceed." The former president silently handed Brian a document.
Termination notice.
It was an official document. Brian was being fired for misconduct, including meeting women during work hours and charging personal expenses as business entertainment. In exchange for firing Brian, I promised the former president that he could continue as the company's president, and he agreed to the condition.
Even minor misdeeds can accumulate into a major offense. What you did constitutes a serious breach of trust. It's only fair that you're dismissed.
Brian stood in shock, but I had no intention of letting him off the hook.
If you understand, would you please leave now?
Why should I?
This is my house.
This place is rented, right?
The landlord says you can't stay here anymore.
He doesn't want to rent it to you. Brian looked completely confused. I decided to elaborate further.
I bought this apartment. And you seem to have forgotten, but the lease was only until last month. So, you no longer have the right to live here. I don't plan on renewing the contract.
Brian was speechless.
We'll have to decide on asset division and who gets which furniture, but for now, I don't want to see your face. Could you go back to your parents' house? Sarah is about to be discharged from the hospital, isn't she?
Sarah was scheduled to be discharged in a few days after a month-long stay in the hospital.
Go back and prepare for Sarah's return. We'll communicate through our attorneys about what comes next.
Please take him with you. I handed Brian over to the former company president.
If you come back, I'll report you for trespassing. Even though we're not officially divorced yet, if the landlord says no, it's a no.
Brian left the room with the former company president silently. There was still more work to be done, but I have reached the end of a chapter. After Brian went back home, I started receiving calls persistently from my in-laws, having heard about the divorce.
Helen, you're so amazing. Why didn't you tell us? You truly are our son's wife. We are so proud of you.
Getting a divorce must be a joke, right? Helen, you loved Brian so much. Can't you forgive a fling or two? That's just men being men. At first, they were arrogant, but when they realized my resolve to get a divorce was firm, they resorted to threats.
You got Brian fired. What are you going to do about that? We'll demand compensation. What you did is unthinkable for our son's wife. Hiring a detective to investigate your husband's behavior. Imagine how it would affect your reputation if it gets out.
When I confidently told them to go ahead with claiming compensation and leaking information about me, they finally shifted to begging.
Helen, I'm really sorry. It felt like you took Brian away from me, and I acted spitefully. Please understand. What are we supposed to do if you leave us? I apologize if I upset you. So, please forgive Brian. If you can't forgive him, how about just us? We were family once, after all.
Of course, I refused everything they had said to me.
I've said it over and over again, but I'm divorcing Brian. If you keep pestering me, I'll report you to the police and consider taking legal action.
After consulting with my attorney, we sent them a formal warning, and they finally stopped contacting me. I made sure Brian paid the compensation. And I ensured it was paid from the assets we divided. Luckily, his high salary meant he had savings. Now jobless and without savings, he's back living with his parents. He found a job in the service industry that he once looked down upon, working from early morning till late at night. Considering he had affairs with other men's wives, he's also facing compensation claims from their husbands. I hope he works hard and pays it all off, no matter how many years it takes. I talked to the women with whom he had cheated. All of them apologized, saying they weren't serious and were just in it for Brian's money and elite status. While I had anticipated this, any relationship with a married person, regardless of the reason, is a legal offense and can be subject to a lawsuit. I made sure these women understood the severity of their actions by legally requiring them to pay compensation. Hopefully, this will be a lesson, and they won't repeat the same mistake. After that, I officially took over as the company president from my uncle. I appointed my uncle as the chairman to continue receiving his help and advice. Although my father's condition has stabilized, he's not in a state to work. But seeing me take over the company, he started seeing to bring him peace, and his spirits noticeably improved. Occasionally, he still offers his thoughts and advice, which I value greatly. I hope my parents live as long as possible. Right now, that's my greatest wish. I've caused them so much worry by getting involved with such an awful man. I gave my parents a lot of trouble, but I resolved my problems all on my own. That seemed to make my father approve of me as a manager. Next time, I want to meet someone better and reassure my parents as a daughter, but I'm not sure I want to get married for a while. This company is like my child now. I want to raise it and help it grow bigger and better. As a company president, I'm just taking my first steps. But I believe a bright future lies ahead on this path. And of course, I'm still running that restaurant. This restaurant was where my parents began their business, and it was the start of my career. In a way, it's like my first child that I shall cherish for the rest of my life. I want to treasure it forever so that I never forget where I came from.
You were adopted into that family, and now Rocky is just a stranger to you. After you get married, please don't involve yourself with us as a couple. Since you're a stranger, you're not invited to the wedding. I lost my parents when I was young and have lived separately from my brother, Rocky. When I heard that Rocky was getting married, I was overjoyed. But then his fiancée Cameron said something outrageous. Little did she know, it would later cause her a great deal of trouble. I'm Samantha, a 33-year-old office worker. My parents passed away in a traffic accident when I was just 8 years old. At the time, my 5-year-old brother Rocky and I were initially taken in by our paternal grandparents. Our grandparents tried their best to raise us, but caring for 2 children was a tough task. It must have been difficult for them, especially after they had retired, to continue raising 2 kids. 3 years later, I was alone, taken in by my Uncle Leighton and Aunt Ashley, becoming their adopted child. It was sad to be separated from Rocky, but it didn't mean we would never see each other. I was nervous about moving to a new home just as I had gotten used to living with my grandparents. However, Leighton and Ashley welcomed me as their own child.
Let's gradually become a real family. For us, Samantha is already our daughter. It might be hard at first, but let's try to be open and talk about anything.
I remember feeling deeply reassured by his words. I learned much later that Leighton and Ashley, unable to have children, had decided to adopt me after much discussion. Their home was a bit far from my grandparents, but a 30-minute bus ride was all it took, and I thought soon I could visit Rocky on my own. And so my life as Leighton and Ashley's daughter began. Being a biological parent and having a parental relationship aren't the same. At least, that's what I believe. One doesn't have to give birth to be a mother. A parent-child relationship can develop over time, through shared experiences and mutual affection. I learned this firsthand living with Leighton and Ashley. Though there's no blood relation between Leighton, Ashley, and me, we are undoubtedly parent and daughter, a family. I only shared this with close friends, and they were often surprised to hear we weren't biologically related. Some even praised me for growing up well despite my circumstances. But it was all due to Leighton and Ashley's love and patience. Initially, I couldn't fully open up to them, was sometimes willful, and even had a rebellious phase in hindsight. I'm truly grateful to them for accepting and facing these challenges with me. And now I wholeheartedly think of Leighton and Ashley as my parents. As an adult, I wanted to give back to them, even if just a little. So I joined Leighton's company, worked hard, and now serve as a supervisor. Rocky and I kept in touch regularly. Once we both had mobile phones, we exchanged messages and calls directly, and I sometimes visited him. However, our meetings dwindled after high school, and my messages were often met with brief replies. It seemed normal for siblings of the opposite sex to drift apart as they grew older. But like me, Rocky grew up well and remained kind-hearted under our grandparents' care. Though he must have felt lonely at times without parents, he never caused me much worry. Eventually, Rocky graduated from college and joined a renowned company, a source of great pride for our grandparents and me as his sister. Then, this year, when he turned 30, he surprisingly reached out first, wanting to introduce me to the woman he was going to marry. While I was happy for him, I also felt a bit upstaged. I regretted that our grandparents weren't around to share the joy. They would have been delighted. A few days later, Rocky brought his fiancée to meet Leighton, Ashley, and meet me at our home.
Samantha, Leighton, Ashley, let me introduce you to Cameron, my fiancé,
he said. Having lost our parents at a young age and then separated, our journey had been a challenging one. Seeing Rocky so happy and smiling, I couldn't help but feel like a mother to him. It amazed me that Rocky, once a small and cute little brother, was now introducing Cameron to us.
This is my sister, Samantha. Thank you for coming today.
I smiled at Cameron as I was introduced.
Rocky, I'm so happy to see you after such a long time. You've become such a respectable man. Congratulations on your engagement.
I'm so happy to meet you, Cameron. Thank you for coming. Leighton and Ashley also smiled and spoke to the couple. No, it's natural to attend a family meeting. I wanted to talk with Samantha too, she replied with a clear, smiling face. I had imagined her to be a quiet lady since she's the daughter of a business partner, but she seemed very composed. Rocky is a gentle, easygoing type, so maybe he matches well with a woman like her. She looked straight at me with determined eyes. That day, we introduced ourselves to each other and had a casual conversation with Leighton and Ashley over some cake. Samantha, are you single? Any plans for marriage? You're adopted by this family, aren't you? Don't you live alone? She asked various questions, seeming to investigate, but I felt she was trying to get to know me, her future sister-in-law. I was pleased when she wanted to exchange contact information when leaving. Later, she contacted me to meet at a cafe, and I felt ticklish, thinking this is what it's like to have a sister. However, my lighthearted mood was about to be abruptly overturned. As we started drinking coffee face-to-face, Cameron began, I wanted to talk with Samantha alone today. Sure, thank you. It's just us girls here, so if you have any complaints about Rocky or anything hard to say, feel free to tell me. That's not what I want to talk about. Did she just sigh? I felt something off in the atmosphere and looked up, meeting her steady gaze. There's something I want you to promise before we get married. What could it be? The mention of a promise made me a little nervous, especially since her gaze was so intense. Samantha, you're an adopted child of that couple and single, right? Yes, that's right. I was surprised by her sudden question, but answered. Rocky is now a stranger to you, right? After getting married, please don't involve yourself with us. What? I was so shocked that I let out a foolish sound. We won't invite you to the wedding since you're a stranger. What? Wait, just a minute. What is she saying? Well, legally, Rocky and I might be strangers, but we are real siblings. I don't intend to interfere with your married life, but I do want to attend the wedding and celebrate. I've heard there's no family without issues between a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law or sister-in-law. Maybe she's making sure with me, her future sister-in-law, first to avoid any trouble. But I have no intention of interfering with Rocky and Cameron's life. I gently reassured her that she didn't need to worry so much, but she didn't seem to understand my words and said, Don't misunderstand, I'm saying you're a stranger. Family but strangers. I couldn't comprehend what she was saying and tilted my head. Samantha and Rocky are already strangers, right? Moreover, you're still unmarried and living with such an elderly couple. I'd be troubled if you, a single adoptee, start depending on us in the future. She declared firmly. Such a cold look for a future sister-in-law. Unfazed by my stunned expression, she continued. After the couple passes away, it's out of the question for you to leech off us. Wait a minute. They're still very much alive, so stop saying things like that. Besides, I have a proper job and income. Yeah, barely. If you were unemployed, I wouldn't have even attended the family meeting." She interrupted me and glared. "Anyway, you're not invited to the wedding. And don't invite us to your life events either. Just because you're single doesn't mean we'll take on any future support or caregiving." What does she think of me? Sure, I'm single now, but I have a job and savings. Most of all, thinking about a family member's spouse in such a way, I felt dizzy. "I understand your feelings, but not even contacting about life events. I think Rocky wouldn't agree. Just because we've seen each other less as adults doesn't mean the family bond is gone." Despite being shocked, I replied firmly, "Well, I guess minimal involvement can't be helped, but please gradually become distant." Her casual words made me feel sad. I'm asking this for our happy married life. If Samantha refuses, it'll make marriage difficult. Rocky was the one who wanted to marry. Please think about his happiness. It seemed like an ultimatum. If I didn't agree, she wouldn't marry Rocky. It sounded more like a one-sided declaration than a request. Rocky's proud smile from the other day came to mind. This condition was unreasonable, but I didn't want to ruin Rocky's wedding. Faced with her absurd demand, I had no choice but to remain silent. That night, when I told Layton and Ashley about the day's events, they were incredulous. No wonder. "Did she really say that? She seemed so pleasant when we talked the other day." I was surprised too. I thought she just didn't want a sister-in-law meddling, but she flat out said we're strangers, and there was nothing I could do.
"What will you do?"
Layton asked, concerned. I didn't want to spoil Rocky's happy wedding. "I don't agree, but I'll be absent. Once things settle, I plan to meet and celebrate with Rocky alone."
"I see. But if Samantha is treated like that, we don't feel like attending either."
"Really?" Ashley nodded beside me.
"Seems like it's her loss, not ours."
"Huh?" I looked puzzled, and Layton smiled and nodded slightly. Then, on the wedding day, the sky was clear and blue. I should have been there to witness Rocky's happiest moment, but it couldn't be helped. Then my mobile phone rang. The screen read, "Cameron." I felt no obligation to answer. The call stopped, then rang again repeatedly. Ignoring it, the phone rang over and over. On her wedding day, how could she have the time to call so much? So annoying, I muttered, and Layton and Ashley chuckled, guessing who was calling. I put it on silent mode, but now it vibrated repeatedly. I wondered what face she made, having declared me a stranger. Eventually, the phone quieted down, but my call log was filled with Cameron's name, almost like a stalker. I found it funny. There were several voicemail messages, but I had no desire to listen. That afternoon, while enjoying snacks with Layton and Ashley, the doorbell rang insistently. When I went to the door, Cameron barged in furiously. "Why didn't you answer the phone? Do you know how many times I called?" Isn't it your wedding day? What do you want at a stranger's house?" "Your absence ruined the wedding." "Really?" I smiled back, full of ease. "So you're saying I made Layton and Ashley not attend too?" "I didn't do anything. I just didn't go to the wedding as you told me." "Really?" "That's right, isn't it? You're the one who told me, who wanted to attend Rocky's important wedding, that I couldn't come because I'm a stranger. Why should I answer a call from a stranger?" Don't use such twisted logic." "What brings you here then?" "Well, because Layton is the branch president of the Electrical Industry Association, right? Someone mentioned his absence at the wedding."
"Cameron!"
Suddenly, Rocky burst in. "Rocky?"
"I'm sorry, Layton. Ashley, I left without stopping her, thinking she'd be here. Samantha, I'm sorry too. I didn't know anything."
"What happened?"
"I was told by Cameron that Samantha wouldn't attend. She said she had to meet her boyfriend's parents on this day and couldn't tell me. I thought it couldn't be helped."
"Huh." Quite a convincing lie she had prepared as a reason for me not attending Rocky's wedding. I'm almost impressed.
Then today, when attendees learned Layton was absent, they asked why the chief guest was missing. Someone close to Layton said because Samantha refused attendance, the branch president also did not attend. Moreover, Samantha is the groom's real sister. What does this mean? Cameron's parents were shocked. We didn't know about this, they said. Then it all spiraled into a big commotion with relatives and the other guests.
I guess the wedding turned into chaos, whether it was expected or not. Cameron, who had been listening to Rocky with clenched lips, glared at me again.
It's your fault. I was criticized as cruel and inhuman. If only you had answered the phone and come to the wedding, you heartless person.
Who's the heartless one, I wonder?
Leighton, who had been quietly observing, stood up and spoke.
I decided not to attend on my own. Samantha actually wanted to attend for Rocky's sake.
Really?
I'm a business owner and currently serve as the branch president of the Electrical Industry Association. I have relationships with Rocky's major manufacturer and your father's parts factory, but you've ruined this connection. Such discourtesy will become known, and it'll not only affect your position but also your father's company.
Oh!
By the way, Samantha is now a chief officer in our company. She's studying technology and management every day and is indispensable. She's been the secretary of the Electrical Industry Association for 2 years now, so she has a considerable network in the industry.
What?
Cameron, who had looked down on me as a single poor nuisance, was shocked.
Indeed, these siblings lost their real parents when they were young. It's a sad story, sadder than we can imagine.
Leighton continued in a calm, dignified voice.
But Samantha has bravely forged ahead in life. You, who judged her unilaterally as an adoptee and single, are far more than foolish.
Cameron had no comeback. She didn't have the words to argue with Leighton. She turned her anger back on me.
This liar! If I knew this person was important and rich, I would have let you attend the wedding.
Enough already, I said firmly to her, who still couldn't say anything but that. I tried to talk about my work, but you didn't listen, did you? Everyone introduced themselves on the day of the family meeting. You only remembered that I was single and an adoptee. You end up in such situations because you judge people only by their titles and appearances. I'm not here because I can't afford to live alone, but because I want to be with my parents, Leighton and Ashley.
What?
We're family. Now, stranger, please leave.
Wait, if you don't mediate, I'll be the bad guy. Do something, sister.
I'm not your sister. I'm a stranger. I smiled and corrected her.
He's my cute little brother's fiancé, so you're like a sister.
Stubborn, aren't you? Take responsibility for what you said.
If you smooth things over, I'll take back what I said before.
There's nothing I can do as a stranger.
Wait, what?
Then, goodbye.
Wait, don't go like that.
Come on, let's go. I still have a lot of questions for you.
Cameron, still protesting, was forcibly taken away by Rocky. After that, Rocky and Cameron's wedding was called off midway, and Cameron was billed for the cancellation fees. She complained it was unfair, but her parents accepted it was their daughter's fault. Her father's company, though she was a president's daughter, was just a small factory. Maintaining relations with Rocky's major company and the Electrical Industry Association, where Leighton served as branch president, was vital for the survival of their business. Now, due to her actions, her parents were busy apologizing. Of course, she was scolded severely for causing such a situation and wasn't even allowed to return home. She tried to stay with friends, but after the wedding fiasco, they distanced themselves and no one was willing to help. Rocky came to apologize for what happened.
It turns out she only liked me because I work at a big company and have no parents, so I'm not a hassle. And treating Samantha like a nuisance, I hate that I couldn't see through her.
We all cheered up the downcast Rocky together with Leighton and Ashley. It's good that the marriage certificate wasn't issued yet. She was pretty, and if she hid her true nature in front of you, it's no wonder you were deceived.
Rocky is too kind. It's unfortunate about her, but you'll surely find someone who truly loves you. Really?
Here, Rocky, your favorite sweets from that shop. Let's have some coffee. This incident seemed to have brought me closer to Rocky, whom I hadn't seen much since we became adults. I realized I had been neglecting to keep in touch with Rocky too. The reason for our reunion was his marriage announcement, so in that sense, I guess I should be thankful to her. Watching Rocky talk with Leighton and Ashley just like a real family, I thought about this. Friends, lovers, family. Maybe we tend to take those closest to us for granted and forget to care for them over time. I want to cherish and protect this happiness, taking care of the important people in my life. Are your loved ones doing well?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going through trash. With that, Emma showed a triumphant smile, unaware she was making a mistake that would end her life. My name is Sally. I'm 32 years old. I work as a seamstress at a TV and film studio, fixing costumes. The costumes at the studio are diverse, ranging from extravagant period pieces to everyday clothes used in contemporary shows. I alter the designs to fit the era and size them to fit the actors, repairing any wear and tear from filming. My daily work involves handling clothes using sewing machines and irons. My actual specialty is sewing. Though my main job is to fix clothes, I'm also skilled at creating garments from scratch. Since I was young, I learned needlework by watching my mother. That's why I consider this job my true calling. The hours are a bit irregular and sometimes the demands are unreasonable, but I love my work. I hope to work here forever. I met my husband Joe at this studio. Joe was in charge of taking care of the actors. We're 3 years apart in age, and since we saw each other every day, we naturally grew closer over time. 2 years after we met, amidst our busy schedules, we eventually got married. We began our new life together. But just as the new life started, my mother suddenly fell ill and passed away, forcing Joe and I to postpone our wedding. Originally, we had planned a simple ceremony at a local church with just family, but the delay prompted us to save up for a proper wedding and honeymoon. Given our irregular work schedules, we thought it wasteful to rent a house just to sleep in. So to save for the wedding and honeymoon, Joe and I started living with his mother, Emma, at his family home. I lost my father early, and coincidentally, Joe had the same experience. My mother was the only surviving parent, and Joe worried about his mother living alone. I wanted to get along with Emma, but in hindsight, that was the beginning of a nightmare. Emma had no intention of getting along with me. In her eyes, I was no different from a thief who had stolen her son. As soon as we moved in, the harassment began. If I cleaned, "Sally, what is this? It's so dirty. Here, there, and over there. I wonder what kind of upbringing you had. Your parents must have been quite something." I endured the harassment, trying to keep up with the cleaning, even causing my hands to crack and bleed. The strictness regarding household chores was unimaginable. Cleaning, laundry, cooking. If anything was even slightly unsatisfactory, no matter how tired I was, she would make me do it over with a nonchalant face. The more tired I was, the worse the harassment got. No matter how perfectly I did something, she would always find a flaw. I remember scrubbing the sink all night long. It seemed like she was displeased with everything about me. Emma had ordered I do all the household chores. Struggling to balance work and chores, I eventually arranged to work from home. This only escalated Emma's demands. Day in and day out, I was like Cinderella, slaving over household tasks. "Is the laundry done? The curtain upstairs is torn. Fix it. You're good at sewing, aren't you?" "Emma, I'm sorry, I have urgent work. Can't the curtain wait until the weekend?" "What are you saying? If it's left like that, who knows what the neighbors will say. Fix it right away." I was doing housework while working, or rather, working while doing housework. Oftentimes, I had to work through the night, because the chores never ended. Emma seemed to thoroughly enjoy watching me become more and more exhausted. She was a perfect sadist, torturing me with her harassment, especially during the daytime when Joe was not around. The relationship between Emma and I was like that of an owner and a maid. I did all the housework. I had pride and couldn't easily confide in Joe. I did my best to fulfill my role, but more than the physical strain of the chores, there was something even more mentally taxing. Occasionally, Emma would invite neighbors over for lunch, and those were truly like hell. Emma was even harsher in front of the neighbors. From their conversation, I could hear them bad-mouthing me. Seriously, she's such a terrible daughter-in-law. I have to educate her every single day. My son is blind to it, but I'm not fooled. She's just so unlikable and lacking in common sense. I listened to the neighbors' laughter, chiming in as if in agreement, and thought to myself, who's the one lacking common sense? Once housework is done, it's done, but their harsh words linger heavily on my heart. Honestly, I felt like I was reaching my limit every day. If this continued, I felt like I might lose my mind. But that wasn't all. Joe has an older sister, Sarah, who's 38. Sarah lived with her boyfriend in a nearby town. If I were to describe Sarah in one word, it'd be stingy. She would come to eat lunch at our house almost every day, probably to save money. The worst part was her unannounced visits. Since I never knew when she was coming, I couldn't have her portion of the meal ready. She would casually eat my food and leave. Everything she owned was hers. Everything at her parents' house was hers. She would just take anything that was at the house.
Perfect. I was just running out of Kleenexes. I'll take these.
But Sarah, I just bought those for Emma. Then I'd get a glaring look.
What are you talking about? You're always home, aren't you? Just go buy more.
Like mother, like daughter. It's a wonder how Joe turned out so well. The biggest problem was when she would take dinner ingredients without asking. Every time I had to stop my chores and work to go shopping again. One day I couldn't take it anymore. Sarah, could you please let me know before you take something? Apparently she told Emma about it. Did you tell Sarah not to come over anymore? What? No, I didn't say that. So you're saying Sarah's lying? Caught between Sarah's lies and Emma's cruelty. Emma alone would be hell. But when you put the two of them together, the mental burden continued. One day, as I passed by the room where the two were talking, I overheard them talking loud enough so I could hear.
It's like having a free maid. How nice. I'm jealous. Send her to my house too.
Maid? Am I not a daughter-in-law? I had thought of myself as a maid, but hearing it said out loud was unbearable. Something inside me snapped. That night, I finally poured out my feelings to Joe. I can't do this anymore. I've been patient, but I can't live with Emma any longer. Please, I want to live somewhere else. After a moment of silence, Joe said, Okay, we've saved enough money. Let's move out soon. Really? I'll start looking for a place right away. Tears of relief streamed down my face. Unbeknownst to us, Emma was standing right outside our room. We had no idea this would lead to her bizarre behavior later on. From that day on, the days that had been so oppressive suddenly began to shine. I had one dream. I wanted to wear a wedding dress I made myself for my wedding. After all, sewing was my profession. After talking with Joe, filled with motivation, I immediately ordered a large amount of fabric online. I decided to focus on making the dress as my new purpose. That's what I decided. I started sewing the dress secretly in my room, away from Emma and Sarah. But one day, Sarah, who often dropped by unannounced, caught me.
Whoa, what's this dress? It's nice to have your own dress. Hey, Sally, I'm getting married in 2 months. Make my dress too.
Really?
Yes, renting is just a waste of money. I want to keep costs low for the wedding, so please.
Typical Sarah, always looking to save money. I hesitated but agreed to make it since she would cover the material costs. I started making Sarah's dress first, as our wedding was still far off. Sarah told me,
Keep this a secret from Mom.
I was asked. It seemed she planned to tell Emma she was renting the dress and get financial support from her. Whatever material costs she paid me, she was determined to recoup. Stinginess to this extent is almost impressive. I even talked to Joe about this situation. His response was, Sis never backs down once she decides something. I'm sorry, but it would really help if you could make it for her. I was asked,
Feeling positive, I answered with a smile. Leave it to me. I'll do my best. I was getting paid, so I felt motivated. I thought of it as practice for making my own dress without spending on materials. I also had a little bit of hope that this might improve my relationship with Sarah. So I immersed myself in dressmaking between housework and my main job. Even Emma seemed to realize what I was up to. She occasionally peeked into my room. Sarah's wedding was approaching fast, and the dress was nearly complete. Then one day, Emma appeared in my room with a smile.
You're working hard again today. Aren't you tired?
Yes, a bit. Her sudden change in demeanor was unsettling.
I'm going to make some coffee. Why don't you take a break?
Really? That would be great, thank you.
No worries at all. I'll bring it to you later.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. As Emma left humming, I felt a strange unease. Emma making coffee for me? That's never happened before. Could it be something more sinister? Different thoughts raced through my mind, but there was no point worrying. I decided to get back to work. I was just adding the final touches of lace. The end was in sight. Despite it being Sarah's dress, I found myself putting love into it. Suddenly I smelled coffee. Emma knocked on the door.
Sally, may I come in?
Oh, what is it? The next moment, I was shocked. Emma entered with a tray piled high with cups and saucers, all filled with coffee. Emma, wait! It wasn't just for two. It looked like she was preparing for a party. The tray was so heavy, her arms trembled, as I instinctively moved to stop her from entering further.
Oops.
Emma pretended to trip. The sound of cups breaking and coffee splashing everywhere filled the room. For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what happened. Everything felt like slow motion. Looking down, my yellow-colored dress was stained like a giraffe pattern. Ah! I screamed involuntarily. I didn't miss the brief smile on Emma's face.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. It wasn't on purpose. Did you get burned? Wait, is that a dress? I thought you were going through trash.
I was speechless. The shock of her actions left me frozen. Then Emma feigned concern.
Oh dear, you can't have your wedding like this, can you?
My suspicions turned into certainty. Emma was trying to sabotage our wedding. Her plan was to ruin our plans to move out after the wedding. But I couldn't afford to be angry now. I rushed to the bathroom with the stained dress. I frantically rinsed the coffee off. I knew the stain would set if I didn't act quickly. Emma watched with a malicious grin.
Need any help?
No, I'm fine, I replied coldly. I was in anger and panic. Then someone appeared behind Emma.
What's this? Are you bullying Sally again?
It was Sarah.
No, I just accidentally spilled coffee on her dress,
Emma said with apparent enjoyment. This was bad, but the situation took an unexpected turn.
What? Are you serious? That's my dress.
Wait, what?
Emma was speechless.
Yours, Sarah? What do you mean?
I can't believe this. I had her make my dress. What am I going to do? My wedding is in 2 weeks.
Emma was panicking like I'd never seen before.
There's no way.
While listening to their ridiculous exchange, I continued to wash the dress I had been working on for months for my sister-in-law. As I washed the dress, I thought to myself, I hadn't told anyone I was making the dress for Sarah, so Emma must have thought the dress was for me. She wouldn't have deliberately spilled coffee otherwise. If she had known it was for Sarah, there'd be no reason to ruin it. Joe and I planned to leave this dreaded family home after the wedding. To Emma, I was always the thief cat who stole her beloved son. She couldn't bear the thought of the woman she saw as a mere maid taking her son away. She thought by sabotaging our wedding, her son would stay home. Such petty thoughts led to her bizarre actions. Sarah was furious, blaming Emma and attacking her.
How could you do this? Everything is ruined. I can't believe my own mother would destroy my wedding.
I'm sorry, Sarah. Please forgive me. I didn't know it was your dress. You don't think I did it on purpose, do you?
Emma finally spoke her true feelings. While listening, I pretended not to hear and continued washing the dress. Then,
so, you thought it was Sally's dress and deliberately stained it?
A man's voice echoed. Everyone turned around at once.
Oh, Joe, when did you get here?
So that's what happened, Mom? Joe stood there with an indescribable expression. I was so focused on washing the dress and listening to their argument that I hadn't noticed Joe's arrival at the perfect moment. He had been silently observing the ugly quarrel between his mother and sister. Joe slowly began to speak, looking utterly disappointed. You saw Sally working hard on that dress every night, and yet you deliberately stained it. That's truly despicable. It's not like that. Don't make excuses, Joe shouted. Emma and Sarah were taken aback. Emma, in particular, had probably never imagined being yelled by her son she cherished so much. Joe continued calmly, yet sadly. I'm disappointed, Mom. Sally had been enduring your attitude all this time, and we both hoped that one day you might change. Sally was patient for my sake, because you're my mom. Hearing this, I felt tears welling up. I had somewhat seen Joe as indecisive and too submissive to his mother, but that was a complete misconception. Before me stood a man determined to protect the woman he loved. Joe's firm stance, though out of place in the situation, made me fall for him all over again. He continued addressing Emma. And it all comes down to this? I can't just overlook it. Mom, sorry, but Sally and I are leaving this place as soon as possible. I plan to stay here until the wedding for your sake, but I can't stay any longer. This time it was just a dress, but who knows if Sally could be in danger next time. It'll be too late then, Mom. Danger? I would never put her in danger. How can you even say that after ruining Sally's hard work so casually? Joe's anger was palpable, but this was his mother. Instead of using abusive language or an overbearing attitude, Joe quietly vented his anger on Emma. His expression was something I had never seen before, anger mixed with an indescribable sadness. He was denying everything about his mother who had always doted on him. Emma seemed deeply affected. She was speechless, reduced to tears. Emma, who was usually quick to aggressive remarks, was now crying. Sarah was also stunned, alternating her gaze between Joe and Emma. Later, Sarah canceled her wedding. Since it was so close to the date, she was not getting any of her money back.
It's not my fault at all.
Emma was the one who paid for it, so Sarah wasn't losing any money. Emma seemed to finally regret her thoughtless harassment that had spiraled out of control. The shock of being scolded by her son also left her quite weakened. But the issue wasn't confined to our house. Sarah's sudden cancellation angered her boyfriend and his family. Eventually, Sarah ended up breaking up with him. Emma was continually blamed by Sarah for this outcome. After we left the family home, Emma occasionally contacted us. She was asking for money. One reason she didn't want us to leave was the financial aspect. While living together, we contributed to the household expenses. But Emma had no income apart from her pension. It seemed she had been relying on our money. However, every time Emma called asking for money, Joe refused. Mom, why don't you work? There are plenty of jobs out there. We need to be independent, you and us. Please, leave us alone. Emma pleaded not to be abandoned, but Joe remained firm. His resolve seemed to stem from a sense of duty. Later, Emma started working as a janitor. Her strictness with cleaning seemed to fit the job, which was ironically a bit amusing. Sarah, after breaking up with her boyfriend and moving out of their apartment, returned to live with Emma. She completely stopped working, relying on Emma's part-time income and pension. I saw her once, and she was unrecognizably overweight. Joe and I moved into an apartment and are enjoying our new, happy life. There's no one here to make snide remarks or be sarcastic. Our life now is so blissful compared to our time in that dysfunctional family home. We've finally set a date for our wedding. We decided on a small ceremony with just friends and colleagues, and chose not to invite Emma and Sarah. We didn't want any disturbances, especially considering both are in a dark place right now. But that's just how it has to be. They brought it upon themselves. I've started making a new dress for the big day. It's going to be much more beautiful than the one that ended up with a giraffe pattern.
My name is Harper. I'm 28 years old and run a leather shop. I married Lucas, a customer who ordered a wallet for my workshop 4 years ago. We have 3 children, Oliver, 14, and Mason, 12, Lucas's sons from a previous marriage, and Noah, our 3-year-old. Lucas owns a pizzeria. I heard his first marriage didn't work out due to his ex-wife's infidelity. I don't regret marrying him, but I'm really struggling with his 2 older boys. They just haven't been taught basic manners. Things like table manners and folding their clothes neatly. I've tried teaching them, but they don't listen, not seeing me as their mother. Thankfully, there's no sibling rivalry, as they both adore our youngest, Noah. Oliver and Mason eat a lot, so it's helpful when they play with Noah while I'm cooking. But beyond that, they seem to harbor some hostility towards me. Their speech and thought patterns are just like their father, Lucas. I thought I was marrying a reliable leader before our wedding, but he became more commanding after we tied the knot. He must have always been self-centered. Since Lucas talks to me in such a manner, the kids probably think it's acceptable. Lucas comes home late, so the kids eat dinner before him. I'm teaching Noah how to use a fork and spoon, but Oliver and Mason complain about it.
Noah, you don't need to learn the correct way. As long as you can eat, it's fine.
That's right, you can't eat like me with any style. This makes it hard for Noah to practice. For Noah, holding it correctly looks cooler. In private, I encourage him, and we continue practicing slowly. However, the one thing the kids look forward to is Parents' Day at school. They seem proud to have a young mom. They check what I'll wear and how my hair will be styled for Parents' Day. After it's over, they wait for me and make a show of our close relationship, but in a soft voice.
We call you Mom, but we don't consider you our mother,
they always say. I reply, okay, I'll keep trying until you accept me. I plan to raise them equally with Noah. Lately, Oliver, maybe in his rebellious phase, seems to disdain me, almost like he sees me as a servant. I feel a growing distance between us. Initially, I tolerated it, as typical teenage behavior, but it became too much, so I talked to Lucas. Hey, Oliver's defiance is getting out of hand.
Am I supposed to do something about it?
He replied, showing his usual disinterest. Frustrated by his attitude, I still insisted he take it seriously, as it's about his son and our family. Tired of my talk, Lucas said,
I'm going to bed,
and tried to leave. I quickly told him about Oliver's behavior. When I try to eat with him,
don't come near me. Don't talk to me,
he says. He also tells me,
I have a real mom, so stop acting like one.
And Mason copies him, which hurts. Lucas just nods while looking at his phone. Listen to me and think about it, I insisted.
I am listening. Stop nagging. Your worrying about this shows you're not a real mom. If you think you're a mother, figure it out yourself. Parenting is a mother's job, right?
Parenting is a responsibility of both parents. Lucas clicked his tongue and said,
You make this home uncomfortable. I come home tired and need relaxation. Maybe you should let their real mom take them.
As he headed to the door, I asked where he was going.
To my woman's place. You knew, right?
Are you cheating? I asked.
You didn't know? How much do you trust me? You're so naive.
He laughed, then left. That only added to my confusion and worries. Lucas didn't come back after that. Oliver and Mason continued their defiance. I searched online for how to deal with rebellious teens and tried to avoid the listed don'ts. Don't react to every reaction. Keep a watchful distance. I stuck to these. While working in my workshop, I pondered what to do about Lucas and the boys. Noah, our youngest, has become increasingly clingy, uneasy about the changing environment and reluctant to go to childcare. One evening while cooking dinner, Oliver and Mason approached me.
We heard our dad say our real mom wants to take us back.
Dad said that? I don't know. Then Mason, looking happy, said,
Big brother contacted Dad and arranged to meet our real mom today. So we don't need the dinner you made. We're going to our real mom's place. You're pitiful, abandoned by both Dad and us.
I wanted to respect Oliver and Mason's desire to meet their real mother, but I mentioned they needed Lucas's approval.
Dad said to decide after meeting our real mom. We'll eat tonight and leave with our stuff tomorrow.
I realized that Lucas, Oliver, and Mason had already discussed this.
You're pitiful, abandoned by both Dad and us.
Deeply hurt me. And so, Oliver and Mason left to meet their real mom. The repeated mention of our real mom made me lose all confidence as a mother. Hours later, they returned, seemingly overjoyed from their meeting, too excited to even notice Noah talking to them. They were so excited about their mothers that they could not hear Noah when they spoke to each other, and they began to pack their bags. I asked Oliver, "Are you going to live with your mom? When will you come back?" Perhaps my question hit a rebellious nerve, as Oliver ignored me. Mason said,
Mom wants to live with us. She'll ask Dad to let us stay with her forever. Goodbye.
I contacted Lucas, likely living with his affair partner, to ask if he knew and consented to the boys living with their mother. Lucas revealed that his ex-wife had long wanted the kids back, and he thought it was best to let them choose. Feeling everyone involved wanted this, I told Lucas. "Understood," I said. When I spoke to Lucas after a long time, he was calm. I wanted to confront him about living with his affair partner and our future. Lucas' response was,
"Oh, I was planning to come home and talk about this. I'm living with her now. She's pregnant, so I'm taking responsibility. Let's get divorced."
"Pregnant? Divorce?" I was overwhelmed by loneliness. My cherished family had long been broken. To Lucas, Oliver, Mason, and even their mother, I was just disposable. My mind went blank, tears uncontrollably flowing. I had considered overlooking the affair for the kids, but a pregnancy was too much. Realizing I was unloved in this marriage, my heart ached. For hours, my memory was a blur, filled with tears. I tried to stand, but my ears rang, muffling all sounds. Thankfully, during this time, Noah had stayed by my side, asleep holding my hand. I tucked Noah into bed and checked Oliver and Mason's room. They had left early, unable to wait till tomorrow. Longing for my brother Robert's voice, I called him. Robert had opposed my marriage to Lucas till the end. I expected reprimand,
That's why I opposed to it back then.
but just wanted to hear his voice. I broke down before Robert even answered. When he did, I couldn't speak through my sobs. Sensing something, Robert said he'd come over. I couldn't bear being alone, and waited for him at the door. Robert, living nearby, arrived in about 10 minutes, bringing lots of beer.
When you're upset, drinking's the best.
He said, putting his arm around me and leading me inside. He went into the kitchen, checked the fridge, and started cooking with what was available.
Stop crying before the food's ready. You'll make everything too salty.
He joked, trying to cheer me up. Noah woke up, delighted to see his favorite uncle. Robert's cheerful nature makes him beloved by everyone, from kids to the elderly. Reflecting, I realized Robert's opposition to my marriage might have been because he saw Lucas's true nature. Thanks to Robert, I stopped crying and regained some calm. Robert brought the food and beer to the table. He told me to sit across from him, so I did. Noah naturally sat on Robert's lap, being affectionate. I realized I hadn't made Noah this happy or seen him smile like this recently. Feeling guilty for always trying to please Lucas, Oliver, and Mason, I blamed myself for that. Robert said,
"Have you eaten anything today? You haven't, right? No excuses. Eat."
He waited for me to eat. I tried a bite of Robert's cooking and was surprised at how delicious it was. Noah also said it was tasty and ate more than usual. Before I knew it, my son and I had finished everything. After we ate, I finished the dishes while Robert played with my son. When I joined them, Noah was sleeping peacefully on Robert's lap. After putting my son to bed, Robert sat next to me on the sofa. "So what happened? Tell me," and asked. I told him everything that was in my heart, and he listened intently, nodding. After I finished, Robert asked, "Is that everything?" "That's what I hear." "Yes," I replied.
"Harper, since you got married, the only happiness you've had is Noah's birth, right? And the only fun, his growth. How about Noah, seeing his mom unhappy? Let's think about Noah's happiness together,"
he said. Then we toasted with beer, laughed, cried, and got angry. With Robert's help, I decided to move forward. When I woke up in the morning, I was in bed with Noah. Robert had made breakfast for Noah and me before leaving a letter behind. The letter read,
"Harper, keep protecting Noah. I'll keep protecting you. Get ready to move."
After reading the letter, I slowly talked to Noah. "Your brothers and dad are gone, so you and I will move." Noah understanding something even at 3.
"I'm okay, as long as I'm with Mom."
We decided to prepare for the move together and took the day off from childcare. We packed up our few belongings and, with Robert's help, completed the move using his car. The new location is on the 2nd floor of the workshop. The new home was above the workshop, which was a renovated part of my late parents' house, with the 2nd floor unused. Robert suggested and helped execute the move there. After settling in, I informed Lucas I agreed to the divorce. Lucas seemed relieved and cheerful. "I'm taking only Noah. Just need child support for him," I said. Lucas, already having plans for Oliver and Mason, didn't object. He agreed to pay a lump sum for alimony and Noah's child support. I told him I'd sign the divorce papers after confirming the deposit. His pizzeria, popular for its all-you-can-eat and drink, was profitable, so he transferred the agreed amount quickly. I met Lucas at a cafe, signed for the divorce papers, and submitted them to the court together. Lucas wanted to ensure I really filed for divorce. After submitting the papers, we parted ways, with Lucas in a good mood. I returned to the workshop and worked until it was time to pick up Noah from childcare. I was able to focus on work for the first time in a while. At childcare, I was relieved to hear from the teacher that Noah seemed unchanged. Our life as a twosome at home began, with Noah as cheerful as always. A week into our new life, Oliver called.
"Hey, why aren't you here? I'm hungry. Come back and make dinner. You don't do housework without us."
Confused, I said, "What? I'm not coming back. Didn't Dad tell you?" Oliver, unaware.
"I'll call Dad, then I'll call you again."
He said he'd call back after talking to Dad. I wondered why Oliver and Mason, supposedly with their mother, were at our old house, but decided not to dwell on it, as they were no longer my concern. A few hours later, Oliver called, asking me to meet at a cafe. At first, I'm not going. However, he said that if I didn't come, he would come to the workshop. So I reluctantly decided to head to the cafe. When I arrived at the cafe, Oliver, Mason, and Lucas were already there. I remained standing. "What business?" I asked. Then there was Oliver.
"I heard what you said. I'm going too."
Mason nodded and seemed to be waiting for my response, but I decided to summarize the incident. "You're living with your mother. You went to the house we used to live in together. You called me to make food because you were hungry. I told you to ask Dad why I'm not there, and you called him. You called me to this cafe. Is that okay? So what's the reason?" I asked, and Oliver started to tell his story rapidly. They lived with their mother, but she dumped all the housework on him and Mason and did nothing herself. Sometimes her boyfriend would come over, making them feel uncomfortable. They were told not to go to high school, but to work and contribute money to the house immediately. Regretting their decision, they ran away from their mother's house and returned to their old home, only to find it messy with laundry, dishes, and trash everywhere, leading him to call me in frustration. He called his dad, as I suggested, and learned about our divorce for the first time. Lucas said,
"Your mother hasn't changed. But you two wanted to live with her, right?
Oliver got angry at Lucas for not telling them about their mother's true nature, saying he wouldn't have left if he had known. Lucas laughed at Oliver's anger.
My current wife hates housework too, and it's a disaster.
Oliver then turned to me and said,
We'll live with you then.
I laughed and replied, No way, you guys have changed your surname, haven't you? Didn't you know? Oliver was stunned. Well then, there's nothing more to talk about, so I'm going home. When I tried to leave, Lucas said something unbelievable.
Let's go back to the original family. Harper, you and the boys can come back. I'll kick out my current wife, since she's unfit.
Oliver and Mason looked at me expectantly, waiting for my answer. After sighing, I said, I only need Noah as my family. Remember what you did to me? Can you really say that after recalling everything? Who would want to return to that hell? And finally, with more anger than I expected, I said, Enough of your jokes. Now it's my turn to leave you behind. I left the cafe. As the door closed behind me, I heard the sound of glass breaking, Oliver's yelling, and Lucas shouting,
Stop!
I didn't look back and went home. Since then, I've had no contact from Oliver or Lucas, and I'm living happily with Noah. I asked the cafe owner what happened after that incident. The police came due to the family fight, and both father and son were taken away. The owner billed them for damages and got paid. I also learned about Lucas, Oliver, and Mason's current situation. Lucas apparently cheated again and left home. He ran his business poorly, causing food poisoning, and had to close down. Oliver and Mason went back to their mother. Lucas's new wife, who was after his money, disappeared when the money ran out. Her pregnancy was a lie. Thinking about how I was once part of such a troubled family makes me shudder. I could only be grateful to Robert for rescuing us. Thank you, Robert.